Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is a special live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, coming to you live on Powertalk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live, download our free app, and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. Without further ado, I want to bring in a cat who has been rocking in the free world for quite some time. He is a legend on the bandstand, has been a leader for quite some time, but really started his career, under the tutelage of the real cats, the Lonnie Macs and the Bluesmen of Chicago. It is an honor to bring in an American legend, Ted Nugent. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Jake, I feel welcome. You deserve me, sir. Happy 2017 to you and all working hard, playing hard as America across the great hinterland, man.
You know what? It is such a beautiful honor to connect with you. I wanted you to talk a little bit about. I had a very serendipitous conversation with a friend of yours, Kevin Russell, and Russ told me that you guys had the same guitar teacher, Joe Podorczyk. He was an original funk brother. Is that true?
I'll tell you, yeah, I'm sure even over these mildly technical phone lines, you can feel the glow, Jake. I mean, I am the luckiest guitar player that ever beat up a rhythm and blues lick. I literally played bass guitar for Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry. Are you kidding me?
No, you mean at Chess Records?
No, not in an official recording session, but on the road at a couple of gigs back in the 70s when they needed a killer musician with ultra funk.
Oh, I'm digging this. So you were playing bass for Diddley?
Yeah, are you kidding me? And you wonder why I'm like this? You wonder where I got this attitude and this spirit and this fully erect American dream? Yes, but going back to, thank God, Kevin Russell, and thank you, Jake, for bringing up the name Joe Podorczyk, because Joe and I, we were in touch last night again. We've been in touch all these years since 1958, when I went to the Capitol School of Music on Grand River in downtown Detroit with my dad. I was just going on 10 years of age, and I had this just horrible anti-musical, unplayable old Epiphone guitar that my dad picked up for me for $5
right.
Because I was begging to try to unleash this rhythm and blues soul music that I was so captured by, so wallowing in back in that era when Little Richard and certainly Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Jerry Lee Lewis. I mean, are you kidding me? When these guys unleashed this powerful, authoritative, emotional, defiant, rebellious, outrageous, noisy, sexy music upon an unsuspecting semi-Caucasian public, I mean, I was absolutely hooked. You could probably tell by my choice of verbiage how excited I was then and how excited I remain today. But yes, Joe Podorczyk was in the hallowed cauldrons of the Motown Hitsville, USA, in Detroit, with the gods.
It was
of authoritative music, the Funk Brothers. So that connection drives me to this very day, 60 years later.
Talking to Ted Nugent here on the Jake Feinberg Show. He is on fire. We're burning. I mean, can you talk, really, if you can go back to that time, it's so important because I talk to so many drummers now, and it's very hard when the drum machine came in. All of a sudden you had human beings trying to copy a machine. Before that, you just had rhythm. You had people you would listen to records, you would listen to people live. Maybe you'd hear one take on the radio and you'd have to memorize it. I just wanted you to talk about how Podorczyk taught you, where you learned rhythm the most. Because if you don't have rhythm, then you don't have a gig.
Well, all of us, I mean, we literally genuflected, both literally and figuratively, at the altar of our black heroes, because the black artists who were rejoicing the escape of slavery, thank God, and the reminiscing of the horror of slavery. That's really why the black music was so authoritative, because they had gone into hell zones that very few people had in history. And that emotional unleashing it, they unleashed it in a virtually uninhibited. You still with me there?
No, you keep riffing, dude. You're doing it. Yeah.
In a virtually uninhibited, primal stream of consciousness that it touched all the musicians, especially in Detroit, Jake, because Motown had already tuned it in to not just the unabashed screaming of celebration from unshackling of slavery, but the joys of the consumers embracing that music of defiance and authority. I hope everyone is listening to my words, because I was there and I breaststroked into that black water rapids of soulfulness. And here it is, 2017, and in 2016, at the tender age of 67 3/4, my band, and you talk about drummers, Jason Hartless,
yes,
21-year-old drummer from Detroit, and Greg Smith, they are my own funk brothers. We had the greatest tour of our life, Sonic Baptism 2016, because that black Motown touch and imprinting that I was baptized with as a young boy in Detroit, it has not only never left me, Jake, but thank God there are guys like you and millions of real music lovers that understand that primal scream, want that primal scream, and they know that the soundtrack to freedom has an edge, and it came from Bo Diddley and Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and all the greatest music in the world. I don't care if it's Justin Bieber and I don't know nothing about his music, and or Kid Rock or Eminem or any music you hear. It has a piece in varying degrees, most powerfully by people like the Chili Peppers and Dave Grohl and his different bands, and my buddies in ZZ Top and Aerosmith and Sammy Hagar. There's a bunch of us out there that still live that Motown, Howlin' Wolf, Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, Wilson Pickett, James Brown authority. Thank God, it's as real as sex, life, and death.
We are having a ball already. I need to ask you this: when the band you were in the early '60s, was it pronounced the Lords?
Yeah, I started the Lords in 1959 in Detroit with John Brake and John Finley and Pete Prim and Tom Noel. We played in the basement, in the garage. I don't know if the world knows it, but we invented the garage band, and we emulated all those black heroes. And let's not fail to mention, Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels, because they showed us how.
So this is so important. I was going to go off on a different, I'm going to hit you later with that. So when I was interviewing Russell, I have this great audio that him talking about how you guys still hang. He loves you so much, and you guys followed each other. But he said Detroit was the only, you developed what was called rock soul. And rhythmically, can you talk about what Mitch Ryder did rhythmically to merge the 4/4 rock with ultimately the soul, the R&B, what was the pulsating, urging, raging freedom of that black music? Can you put that in a musical sense?
You think I might be able to? Jake, by the way, I salute you for those uses of terms you just projected, because I'm going to answer that question about the melding and the unification, the confluence of soul and unabashed rock and roll by a bunch of flailing white kids trying to be Little Richard. and I'll tell you how we did it. And everybody write this down. Johnny Bonangic. Johnny Bonangic.
I don't know that. All right.
He's the drummer for Billy Lee and the Rivieras, where I opened up for the Billy Lee and the Rivieras and Martha and the Vandellas at the Walled Lake Casino in Walled Lake, Michigan, outside of Detroit, with Gene Pitney opening for us. My band, the Lords, I think, 12 years old or something. But my band, Tom Noel, the drummer, and Pete Prim, my bass player, watched Johnny Bonangic, 15 years old. That was as good as, now this is blasphemy to some who don't know better, but I know what I'm talking about. Johnny Bonangic was as good as any black drummer that ever lived, and he still is. He played on my Shut Up and Jam record in 2015, and the guy is a walking throttle. You listen to Jenny Take a Ride, and the reason every band that has come since, they might not know it, but even Bruce Springsteen with his amazing E Street Band and what Max and that rhythm section did was because they re-recorded Jenny Take a Ride. You listen to the bass drum. It is the heartbeat of independence and defiant Americans. And that's why Mitch Ryder still performs across Europe, because he reeks of that Little Richard, James Brown, Wilson Pickett, certainly Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and Mose Allison, Lightnin' Hopkins and all the gods and BB and Freddie and Albert. But that was the epicenter musically of what still delivers the goods to this day. And it's so important you're emphasizing the rhythm, the throttle, the thump, the groove, the spirit. I'm clean and sober, Jake, for 68 years. I've never gotten high on poisons or drugs or alcohol. I get high on spirit. And when you get to play with the caliber of world-class musicians that I have for the last 60 years, like Johnny Bonangic and all my amazing drummers, Tommy Clafettos and Tommy Aldridge and Marco Mendoza, are you kidding me? If you look at my musicians, obviously God loves me a little bit more than he loves other people, because he just surrounds me with these unbelievably gifted, talented virtuosos, and that throttle, that rhythm, is what gets everybody's attention. Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top said it best, and I apologize if I'm too monologuing here.
To me, this is therapeutic, because we're going to keep going, man.
But Billy Gibbons, my dear sonic bombast blood brother from ZZ Top, said it clearly, that a recently conceived fetus in the womb will dance if it gets an earful or mama gets a bellyful of a Bo Diddley lick. Caitlin would be even more confused if he listened to Bo Diddley music, because he'd want all of the sexual apparatus at his disposal. It is so sexy, so earthly, so primal, that if you don't dance to a Bo Diddley lick, I don't even know where to begin for you to get help. But
you just described
a driving force to this day. And I'll tell you, when I pick up my guitar like I did about an hour ago, I'm sitting here with my Labradors right now. They're both completely whooped from doing daily chores. But you can hear I've got terrible bronchitis right now. But when we talk about music, there's no Barack Obama, there's no Taliban, and there's no bronchitis. The music owns our soul, does it not, Jake?
Listen, man. The primal. You're using so many terms that I just throw out all the time to the cats, and it's invigorating for me. I do want to talk to you though about the. Okay, so I'm looking at Johnny B. Bonangic.
Johnny Bonangic. Oh my God, he's an old man. I think he's 71 or 72 now. He played on my Shut Up and Jam record, and listen to his foot. His foot alone will make a dead sequoia dance.
Donald Trump, to me, is not a politician, so I can't.
He's a shit kicker.
He is, but I don't think the Republicans are.
The Republicans are not.
They're not innocent from this problem either. In fact, all I'm saying is Trump was a registered Democrat 4 years ago, and if he starts to put together a stimulus I know you're going to hate that word. If he's going to put an infrastructure plan to get peeps to feel excellent again, because it's actually going to be providing a paycheck and a gig, is that something that you are going to be? And if the point is, if we don't have the money to pay for it and we're going to borrow it, how are you going to feel about that?
Well, you got to look at the whole picture. I needed a car, and I didn't have any money, so I took out a loan. And then the car got me in the band of the gigs, and we started making a little bit of money. I was able to pay off the loan. I was able to buy the next car without a loan.
Right.
So pragmatism and utilitarianism isn't rocket science. Even the author of Wango Tango can figure this stuff out. And that's how we live within our means today. That's how my sons and daughters, my brothers and sisters, and all my family and my friends and my band and my crew and my management and my team, everybody I know, call us weird, but we live within our means. Debt minimal. Debt capable. U.S. government debt sinful, criminal. So it's going to take a long time, but I believe the infrastructure needs have to be addressed. But I believe that, Jake, everybody knows that if you just got rid of the glaring waste and quadplicity, it's not duplicity, it's like megaplicity spending by this government, the bloat, the sinful, blubberous, obesity bloat of Fedzilla, I guarantee for every $1 billion they spend, I could get the job done for $29.95. Are you with me?
No, man. It's personal accountability. I just wanted, and again, this is treading on thin ice, but I'm married, and it's really hard work. And you've been married how many times?
Well, this is my second marriage. We're 27. We're celebrating 28 years
Bless
next
you.
week.
Okay, so
and Mrs. Nugent hasn't killed me yet. Everybody rejoice.
No, I guess, can you talk about, for all the dudes out there, we have 50% divorce rate in this country. No fathers around to teach their kids where the blues came from, where rock and roll came from. You have heroin epidemics going on. How have men become so castrated over the last 20 to 30 years in this society? I mean, I didn't even know you were still married.
Oh, yeah, Shemay and I, she's the queen of the forest. My God, she's the Zumba goddess. I'm going to tell you how old she is, but I swear to God, she's a teenager.
No, address that question, because I do feel like this was. I just feel that the neutering of the hetero male has become. I can feel it. I may not necessarily, I'm not a shit kicker as big as Nugent, but I feel it, and I know it in my gut. And I just want how do we get to this point? How do we get back on the trajectory of having some kind of hierarchical situation? Because the nuclear family is not what it was.
Well, the dumbing down of America has manifested itself in the most egregious way with the pussification of the men. And let me tell you, its worst example, and you can apply this anecdote in any realm or issue. I've got all these buddies that hunt with me. You guys pay a lot of money to really important children's and military charities to hunt with me. And we sit around the campfire, and it's really uninhibited. I mean, they don't hold anything back. But I've actually had guys who are lifetime NRA members who are gun nuts, have carried guns. They're law enforcement heroes or military heroes. Their life revolves around their love of guns and hunting and marksmanship and the aim small, miss small lifestyle. And then they'll poke an ember in the fire with a long stick and go, "Well, I wish you could talk to my wife, man. She hates guns." And I go, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You have an anti-gun wife. Are you kidding me? You haven't fixed her yet? Fix her with truth, logic, evidence, common sense, and the cherishing of life over death when unarmed helplessness will not allow you to survive a death threat. You haven't been able to convey to your own wife why you think a gun is an important life-saving tool, and you're the gun guy, and it's because he doesn't want to be confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do. That's exactly what you want to do. Suppose you don't want to be confrontational with your teenage son or daughter when they want to experiment with drugs. Take them down to the morgue and show them what happens when you experiment with drugs. Maybe take them to a Janis Joplin concert or a Jimi Hendrix concert. Maybe go see Bon Scott or John Belushi next week. You got to be kidding me.
Right.
Confrontation. Doesn't mean you have to bring a crowbar and start smashing skulls, though I'm a big fan. But you have to bring a crowbar of truth and logic and common sense and compassion and educate people to get out of the feel-good lie of liberalism, whether it's anti-gun or anti-hunting or pro-legalization of drugs so that we can have even more death and mayhem and crying families around grave sites. Educate them. Gather the evidence. You know the truth will set you free, but you have to be honest enough to seek out and embrace that truth and then share it with those people who you want to bring quality of life upgrade to. So the pussification came because we think that we can save a marriage by just giving in. No. You're weakening the marriage by giving in. Shemaine and I have, I won't say arguments or debates, but we have some round tables on occasion. And I don't acquiesce.
Yes.
But I nod and as gentlemanly as possible, which, by the way, more than the Motor City Madman, I'm the Motor City Gentleman. I am so charming, I can hardly stand myself because I am polite and understanding, especially with my soulmate, especially with the woman I'm raising our son Rocco with, and that we do everything in life together, and that we are as intimate as one being and one soul. I can convince her. When Shemaine and I got married, she'd never hunted in her life, and she was inclined to buy the propaganda that if you just don't kill Bambi, the deer will live forever. I fixed that in about 38 seconds with a backstrap wrapped in bacon over mesquite coals, and explaining habitat carrying capacity, sustained yield, and how God made these renewable resources to feed us with the ultimate protein. Of course, as a dietitian and as a physical fitness goddess, she immediately grasped the evidence that she had never been exposed to before. The same thing with guns. She had never been downwind of a gun before, and she was real uncomfortable, if not downright scared of them. I fixed that in 8 seconds. This is how you do this. A man has a job to be the leader of a family and to be the voice of authority by consuming and seeking and embracing and exuding all the details and evidence that history and current events provide us, and sharing that with family members so they don't stub their toes on the obvious landmine field that life provides. It's not difficult. Sometimes you have some challenges. For example, my son Rocco, the most wonderful son anybody could ever want, brilliant guy, athletic monster. He's hardcore vegan. He burns incense. He doesn't want to go hunting. So what?
Right.
So what?
Right.
Kicks ass. He's a great kid, but, you think Ted Nugent likes to kill stuff. Well, in fact, Pierce Morgan got a boot in the solar plexus of reality when he said, well, Ted, what if your son came home and said, Dad, I'm gay? I'd go, that's great, son. Let's get a shotgun and we'll kill a pheasant.
So this, in the most humble fashion, part of my show, my show revolves around the 4 L's. One of the L's is life, which means overcoming adversity. And I'd like you to talk about a time in your career or in your life when you really were fighting it. Maybe it was a type of music, or you were dealing with some internal whatever it is, personal. A time in your life when you faced adversity, how you overcame it, and how it made you stronger.
Boy, I'm such a defiant prick that I don't really.
I knew this was coming. Yeah.
When I see adversity, I pretty much just stomp through it. But when I got my heart broken, my psyche shattered by managers, accountants, and attorneys who ended up ripping me off for my entire many millions of dollars of savings, because I didn't live a highfalutin rock and roll star life. I lived very frugal, and I saved tens of millions of dollars by flying coach and driving when I could and living in the same little one-bathroom farmhouse all through my multiple platinum, 30 million selling record years on a little 80-acre farm. And I had one little Mercedes and a Bronco, and I was a frugal guy, and I took care of my family, and it turns out that my management, my attorneys, and my accountants blew through tens of millions of dollars as they lied to me about investment and tax savings.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
The bean counters.
I was shattered because I would have Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving dinner and bar mitzvahs and parties and anniversaries with these people. Then I found out they were robbing me blind. And I had a 357 in my belt, but I didn't grab it. I was, in Braveheart, when William Wallace finally sees the king, he's going to go after the king and kill him, and the hooded lanceman comes to take him on, and it turns out the hooded lanceman back in the grass and went, he just gave up. I wouldn't have laid back in the grass. I'd have killed the son of a bitch. I'd have stabbed him with his own damn lance. So when I face adversity, I never stop making music. I did have a hard time letting the stream of consciousness, rhythm and blues flow continue, because I was so emotionally hurt by the treason I was experiencing by what I thought were dear friends. But I got over that pretty quick because the music cleansed my soul, and because my family and friends were there for me, and a great man named Doug Banker, who'd been an accountant on the road and alerted me to this ripoff. He became my manager back then, and he saved my life economically. And when I saw that he was getting me back on the right track, and that I still had this wonderful, huge, powerful musical commodity that would get me out of debt with the IRS and with all my accounts, it didn't take long for me to get that attitude and that confidence back. So and then there's been the experiences that I will go ahead and render you helpless right now.
Go ahead.
Chad, 16 years old. This is one of dozens of experiences that I've been so blessed by God, where families are experience the trauma of a terminally ill child. And the kids' request, I mean, little boys and girls, 6, 7, 8-year-old little boys and girls, their last request in life is to go hunting with Ted Nugent. Are you kidding me? My haters could possibly have an impact on my life when families saying goodbye to a child think I'm okay to fulfill their dying child's wish, but the haters think that I'm a racist or a draft dodger. Are you kidding me? So, Chad, 16, wants to go hunting before he dies. He's just finishing some chemo and horrible therapy, and he's all bloated, and he's 16 years old, and he's, at that point in life where it's supposed to be the greatest time of his life, and he knows he's not going to live for another year, maybe another couple of weeks. We're here in the hill country of Texas, and when they called me, I said, yeah, bring Chad right now. I'll drop what I'm doing, clear my calendar, we're taking Chad hunting. Couldn't find an animal because of the heat. Called a buddy of mine, Tom Hartsfield, down the road. He got a huge, big ranch with some exotic African animals that Chad would just love to hunt and get a campfire going. We went over there. We couldn't find any animals because of the heat. Couldn't find anything. And up on the top of a mountain, almost like a Cecil B. DeMille moment, there's this huge African Aoudad ram laying on the edge of a shiny rock outcropping. Wow, why would it be out in the sun? It should be down in the cedars hiding from the sun. But there it is. Chad, let's go. Chad gets his rifle, but he's got a walker because he can't walk because of the chemotherapy and the radiation. Oh, boy. So Chad gets his walker, and we start walking around the edge of this cliff. And I said, Chad, we can probably get the truck on the other side. Chad goes, no, I'm going to walk. I'm going to get there. I said, all right, let's go. Be careful. Keep the wind in our face. Keeping these shadows. Chad's using a walker to get up a mountain, Jake. Struggling. I'm trying to be as strong as I can, but Chad doesn't want to drive. He wants to climb that mountain. Well, he did, and he got that ram with a perfect shot.
Wow.
And I'm holding back. I'm calling on God to make me strong because I want to cry like a baby. I'm not gonna, because if Chad ain't gonna, I ain't gonna. And now we got to get to the ram, and he can't get his walker up that cliff. So Chad gets on all fours and crawls up to that ram. And he hugged that ram, and I hugged him, and we sat there, and we cried like babies. And he goes, Ted, this is the happiest day of my life. And the guys came up, and we got that ram, and we quartered it, and we took some back straps and got a fire going that night. And I read a verse out of the Bible that Tom Hartzell gave me. I'm not a Bible guy, but he showed me one that talked about why Chad climbed up that mountain. And then Chad went home, and the next week he died. I don't know if there's a more powerful connection in this world than a family sharing that desire of a dying child with me. Mm. And I've done it. I've done it with little 6-year-old Macon. All he wanted to do was come hunting with Uncle Ted before he died. And Brittany and Scott and Jason. Good Lord, Jake. So
I mean, you said that is a story worth transcribing 10 times over. It's about humanity. But one final question for you. I did start my show talking to a lot of the Afro jazzers, the cast that came out of Detroit. I didn't speak to Elvin Jones, but it was Elvin, Tommy Flanagan. You mentioned Yusef Lateef. Did you ever cross paths with those cats, Kenny Burrell? Because those cats were making up the rules, just like you.
Kenny Burrell and Joe Podorczyk were buddies, and I did go to the. Can I remember the name of the lounge? The Baker's Keyboard. I can't believe my memory.
And Baker's Keyboard Lounge. Good for you, Nugent.
Yeah, Baker's Keyboard, Livernois, wasn't it?
So you went to Baker's?
I snuck into Baker's Keyboard Lounge and I watched Yusef Lateef go where nobody's ever gone in the musical horizons of sonic bombast, and I'm going, wow, I got to practice my guitar and find some notes like that, which I did, by the way.
You did find the notes.
I found those notes. In fact, Paul Schaefer of the Letterman Band, one of the greatest musicians in the world.
Oh, I interviewed Paul. A monster player.
Monster.
Yeah.
I mean, a god of music. He when I first jammed up with that band on Letterman, he came up and gave me this big-ass hug and said, Ted, I want you to know that the opening feedback note in the Journey to the Center of the Mind guitar solo is the greatest guitar note, or maybe the greatest musical note in the history of the world, because it's so wrong. Because it's not really a note. It never got to the note. It's like threatening to be a note. And I said, you're damn right, Schaefer. And I didn't even know where it came from, but it was because I was exposed to Sun Ra and Coltrane and Miles Davis and Yusef Lateef that you could play those semitones that were a threatening note. B.B. King, Albert King, Freddie King were the masters of it. Certainly Stevie Ray Vaughan and Chris Duarte and Joe Bonamassa and Billy Gibbons, they've all got that down, but not quite like those jazz monsters. And so I was lucky to just get exposed to them. I don't know how, because I was into Little Richard and the Rolling Stones, but I heard these noises coming out of these outrageous jazz explorers, and that's what they were. They were exploring sound. I don't know if anybody ever get to see Sun Ra, but it really took some psychological discipline to listen to that stuff.
Yeah, no, he was doing circular breathing, and it was unbelievable stuff on that.
So I've really, talking about adventure, my adventure's not even over yet, but you listen to some of the stuff, I wish I'd get an awful lot of screaming love for my Shut Up and Jam record from 2015. With Sammy Hagar played on it with me, and certainly Greg Smith and John Kutz and the mighty Johnny Bonangic, and what Michael Lutz and I did, we made some music on that record that you'll hear those uncharted, defiant horizons and unexplored. I like to think of myself as Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea of the Gibson Birdland, and I'm still making those kinds of noises. I was playing stuff this morning. I got a PRS in the other room next to my Birdland, and I was making some noises they're just so cool, but within a groove structure, still a grinder, still a sexy, Stranglehold meets Cat Scratch Fever meets Shut Up and Jam meets I Still Believe, and Raw Dogs and War Hogs is still a heavy grind, but noise notes that no one would ever, they're not. People ask me, what scales do you know? And I only got one scale. It's the one I hang my dead deer from. I don't know any scales. I never learned any scales on the guitar. I don't want to play scales. I want to play guts and noises in patterns that end up being a melody. Journey to the Center of my guitar solo, I was 19 years old. Where did that come from? That was incredible.